Hello, Garland, Nixon here. We're going to talk about the crisis in Haiti, and we're going to give you some great information to counter what's happening in the mainstream media. We have with us a good friend of mine, Kim Ives. He is the English editor at HaitiLiberté.com. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here with Kim Ives. And again, he is the editor, the English language editor at HaitiLiberté.com. It's a great website. Let me just tell you, I think Google's up to no good with that website. And I'll tell you why. I go to HaitiLiberté.com. It's all in Creole, French, whatever. And for that particular website, the little thing doesn't pop up that says English, translate into English. But when I actually click on the stories, that's when it'll pop up. And for people that don't know, Google's up to all kind of rotten stuff when it comes to the military and the U.S. foreign policy. Okay, let's start here, Kim. Something I wanted to ask you about, and I before we get going, and I think our viewers will find interesting. Corinne Jean-Pierre, whatever the heck, she is the mouthpiece for imperialism. For Joe Biden. You know her, or you knew her. Can you tell us that story before we get going? I think it's very interesting.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, she went to Columbia University and was making a film. And that was probably around 2000, 1999, 2000. And she reached out to me because I did a film called Bitter Cane. Back in 1983, it came out, won a second prize at Cannes. It was a big deal back in the day. And in fact, it's going to be shown at BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music, on June 7th. So people can mark that on their calendar. It just has been remastered from the original 16 millimeter. In any case, she reached out to me and wanted to talk about it and talk about Haiti. And one thing led to another, and we began a relationship. I was working at Haiti Progrès newspaper at that time, which was sort of the parent of Haiti Liberté. It was the first really anti-imperialist leftist paper in the Haitian diaspora, founded in 1983. So, we began to collaborate and work on various projects, and we had a show on WBAI, and in fact, that's where she interviewed me the first time, when WBAI was in Manhattan on Wall Street. And we started a show called Haiti, The Struggle Continues, and she would help me do the news. We would do the news on that program, and I'd have to go through with her and say, okay, no, we don't say UN peacekeeping forces. We say UN occupation troops, that kind of thing. And so I was showing her sort of how we treated the news. And, she was following along. And then at the coup against Aristide in 2004, we had a big rally, Workers' World Party and others collaborated with us to do a big rally at Brooklyn College. We had Maxine Waters come and Amy Goodman and, all kinds of celebrities and big shots. And Karine and I were the two MCs, were the two hosts of the evening. So, but, gradually she drifted away. She got into that whole Democratic Party political machinery. She first was she started to do campaign management, at which she was apparently the kiss of death, because her first client was Anthony Weiner. Her second one was John Edwards.
Oh, geez.
Her third one was O'Malley, I guess it was, the guy who ran against,
Yeah, Clinton and Trump. Right. Talk about failing upwards.
Right. Talk about failing upward. Anyway, so she was snipped out of there and brought into the Obama world. And I guess, she'd been working with one of the unions, and she was working with Andy Stein, I guess, at AFL-CIO. And so she ended up in labor under Obama. And somehow Obama charmed her. And I remember one of our last discussions at a Haitian restaurant on Flatbush Avenue, I mean, in-depth discussions, was it was the penultimate one. And in fact, we sat down and I said, what are you talking about? Obama? I mean, look at, I forget what was going on then, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, whatever it was. I started to tick off the list. She goes, yeah, I know, it's not good. But still, give them a chance. We're going to do something. So anyway, it got bad. And I saw her, the final meeting I had with her was in New York somewhere. She'd come to speak. And I think that was later when she was, anyway, it didn't go well. And we started to see that we were going apart. So my protege was definitely starting to fly the coop, as it were. So anyway, it's unfortunate. She did, in the interim, in the Trump interim, I was going and she started to ping me by phone. That meeting, I mean, was the last one face to face, but she wanted to go into radio, and she was going to go into radio. And, I said, well, there's a lot of alternative radio coming about. This was what it would have been 2016, right? Or 17. And I started to work, but then she got picked up by Move On. And when she got Move On, I said, okay, that's it. She's on the treadmill up, and there we go.
Wow, isn't that interesting? So here's what we know about Karine. What I think about Karine Jean-Pierre. She knows the stuff that she's saying for Biden is lies, and she knows it's wrong. She knows the truth. She worked with true revolutionaries. She worked with people who really are the left. She knows she's lying. She knows it's criminal imperialism, and this is a choice. It's like, at times the discussion is often, well, do these people really know? Are they under the enchantment of blah, blah, blah? She's just doing this apparently for money and power, it appears.
That's exactly right. I think it's ambition. And, I guess you get cynical at a certain point in time, or you justify it. But yeah, she knows, or she should know better. She's got no excuse not to know better. We tried hard to, it's funny in Creole, brainwash is a positive term. In the U.S. it means, you've been, but Haitians talk about washing your brain when you're trying to get good ideological information into it. But so our brainwashing of her didn't work.
Wow. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right. Let's get talking about Haiti. What's going on there? The lies that's going on there. This is critical, I think. Let's start off with the big ones, and then we'll work our way into what's really going on there. So I'll give you the opportunity to debunk some of the things. And I think this is where we got to start. Jimmy Barbecue Cherizet. Right?
Yeah.
We're told he's the evil of all evil. The government, the U.S. government, someone asked me about it the other day. They said, oh, yeah, they're saying he's bad. I'm like, they say Assad's bad. They say Putin's bad. They said, and I go on and on and on, and Maduro's bad. Everybody that the U.S., and now he's in that group. He's now the evil guy. Yeah. Jimmy Barbecue Cherizet, you have met him. You have walked the streets with him. Talk about what we really need to know about Jimmy Barbecue, his history, where he came from, and how he's viewed in his mission in Haiti. I'm all ears. Take it as long as you need.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, this is, we could spend the rest of the time talking about this, but, the minute you see the empire attacking and sliming somebody, he's doing something right, or she. So, that's the irony, is that I think the empire identified him as a threat even before we did. We at Haiti Liberté were, I could say, not up to speed in the beginning. We have had a number of scoundrels in Haitian history, recent Haitian history. In the 1991 to 94 coup against Jean-Bertrand Aristide. There was a death squad that was formed, headed by a guy called Toto Constant, Emmanuel Toto Constant, who was working with the CIA and was, sorry, my phone is, I'm going to just turn it off completely.
No problem. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah,
Okay, continue.
I had put it on silent, but they insisted. So he was the head of a death squad, which killed a lot of people, and he was a bad guy. We had another guy in the 2001 to 2004 coup d'etat in Haiti called Guy Philippe, who is emerging today as maybe not as bad a guy. He seems to be, pretty good, or at least aware. He worked with U.S. imperialism, CIA and Pentagon, getting guns and money and support to carry out the coup against Aristide. But after he did it, they just tossed him in the garbage, and that really pissed him off. And so now he's kind of anti-imperialist, or very mad at the Americans, at least. And so when Jimmy Barbecue's name started to be talked about as a sort of a villain, we said, okay, this is the new villain. This is the new bad guy. And we even reproduced, I think, the RNDDH is the name of the principal NED U.S. Empire human rights group. Human rights groups are the principal missionaries of the empire. And it stands for the National Network for the Defense of Human Rights in Haiti, headed by a guy called Pierre Espérance. So, we republished in Haiti Liberté their account of the 2018 massacre in La Saline, quote unquote massacre in La Saline. We just took it as cash. This is it, and they were, and it was. And in fact, when in 2019, there was a mercenary crew that arrived in Haiti and tried to rob the central bank of, I think it was $80 million. I did a piece in The Intercept about this. And I turned to Pierre Espérance, for help in getting to the police chief. And he helped me. He drove me around. He, gave me some. And so it wasn't until end of 2020, beginning of 2021, that my director at Haiti Liberté, Berthany Dupont, sat me down and said, listen, Kim, I think we've had it all wrong. This Cherizier, I've been studying him and listening to his YouTube videos and so forth, and I think he's very interesting, and I want you to go down to Haiti and meet with him and tell me what you think. I did. I spent 2 days with him, talking, reviewing, looking at all things in the world. I came back to Beth and I said, man, you are right. This guy is the real deal. I mean, he's a really interesting guy, and I got no alarms went off as I talked to him. And so that was the beginning of a journey for us, because a few months later, in July of 2021, Jovenel Moïse was assassinated. And I was interviewed by, of course, a lot of journalists at the time. And
for those who don't know, because there are going to be a lot of people, when you say Jovenel Moïse, I know that it's the former, he was the prime minister of Haiti, or president, whatever.
President.
Those that don't know,
right.
The president of Haiti was assassinated. His name was Jovenel Moïse. And of course, the U.S. Empire rubbed them out. But anyway, so continue with your story. I just wanted to remind you, the people here, a lot of them were going to, you got to be very foundational with your stuff.
Sure.
A lot of people, they're starting from ground zero. All they're getting is propaganda.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So Jovenel Moïse, who had been president since 2017, was rubbed out by a Colombian hit squad of about 30 guys. There were some Haitian Americans in it too. And they machine gunned him in his bedroom. And anyway, it's still unsolved, quote unquote. But we know, like Garland says, pretty much who was behind it and what was involved. But we can get into that later. So one of the journalist who interviewed me was Dan Cohen, who is a very intrepid, very competent journalist and great journalist. He's one of the foremost independent investigative journalists of our time. And after the interview, he called me and said, Kim, wow, you blew my mind with this stuff. I got to go down to Haiti with you and meet this guy. But he said, listen, I respect your years of work around Haiti, but I can't guarantee you I'm going to agree with you. I got to call it like I see it. You understand that? And I said, that's fine. Let's go. And we went down, and he was working for Mint Press News at the time. And so we thought it was going to be like a 15-minute little portrait of Jimmy Cherizier. Well, it turned out to be the beginning of like a 1.5-year journey where we went back again for a second shoot. And then we got a guy, a Haitian correspondent of ours. We gave him a camera and stuff, and we did some more filming out in Cité Soleil through him. And anyway, the end product was a 2.5-hour-long film called Another Vision, which was the name of the sort of community betterment organization that Jimmy Cherizier had formed in Lower Delma. And the film was 2.5 hours. So we said, no Americans are going to sit down and watch a 2.5-hour documentary on Haiti. So we divided it into 3 parts. So it's a series which is available on the YouTube channels of Haiti Liberté and Uncaptured Media, Dan's new media outfit. So in that film, essentially what we show is that Jimmy Cherizier began as a stellar cop. He's a natural leader. He's got great self-confidence. He's very articulate. He's very charismatic. And, he's very brave. He's incredibly, gallant in his leadership and, led his troops on a lot of hazardous missions. And one of them was a operation in an area called Grand Ravine. And in the course of that, some people were killed. Apparently, they may have been gang members. They may have been civilians. But the human rights groups were looking to bring down the Jovenel Moïse government, in particular, this RNDDH. And RNDDH did a report and said, it was a huge massacre up there. So the cop leadership immediately panicked. It's, oh my God, they're going to come after us, and we're not going to be able to retire to our condo in Coconut Grove. So they said, we got to find a scapegoat. And who was the scapegoat but Jimmy Cherizier? So in that April 2021 meeting, he told me the story of what had happened. They had done an operation in Grand Ravine, which is the base of one of the principal kidnapping gangs headed by a guy called Tila Pli. And he went up, they went in and they basically arrested all the young guys who were possibly gang members or that they determined. And they did the operation between like 5 and 7 in the morning in Grand Ravine, and they had finished with the operation. They were sitting down on the road, and they get a call over the radio, and it says, we got a situation up here at College Maranta. There was another UDMO cop. To do this operation, they had mobilized something on the order, I think it was 200 different police units. They have a unit called UDMO. They have a unit called Boyd. They have a unit called SWAT, and Jimmy Cherizier was the leader of one of the UDMO units. So it was another UDMO leader or commander up at this College Maranta, which is up the hill. And he was saying, we need backup. We need some help up here. So he was basically asking for volunteers. So as Jimmy described it, they'd taken off their helmets. They were done for the day. They were getting ready to go back. And he said, come on, let's go. Because that's the kind of guy he is. He was conscientious. So we led his unit up the hill. They got up there. And the guy who was calling them was a guy called Jimmy Boyer. and he said, come, you, and there was one other commander. So the three of them, Boyer, Cherizier, and this other guy, I forget his name, went in to see the school's director. And the school's director said, we have a situation where there's some guns which have been stashed in our warehouse. And, you can collect them, but we don't want you just go direct and collect them because the gangs are watching the campus right now. And if you go straight there and get them, they'll know I told you, and then they'll come back and they'll kill me. So you gotta pretend like you found them yourself. So they made a whole theater of going through the school and turning over desks and opening doors and closets and whatever, until they got to the little warehouse, which is up at the top of the school. It's on the top of a hill, the whole school. And when they open the door, they see there's kind of this big thing filled with junk, old desks, bicycles, pumps, whatever. And there's 2 rooms with doors with padlocks on them. So they clean out the front part, the foyer, and dump out. They didn't find any guns there. And then they look in the room on the right. And, there's kind of a door and then chicken wire up above. And Jimmy climbed up on a desk or something and looked in and said, okay, let's try the one on the right. So they unlock the door, padlock off, open it. They empty that room. Nothing in there. So finally say, well, it's got to be in the room on the left. So Jimmy Boyer goes there. He opens the padlock, opens the door, and bah, 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 huge fire, cuts him down. He's shot dead on the spot. The guy behind him shot dead on the spot. And Jimmy Cherizier, who was standing there with them, he didn't even know where the gunfire had come from. He didn't even know it came out of the room. And, he thought it was somebody from outside. So they're all looking around, where's the shooting coming from? And then, boom, 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 a few more came out and he realized. So he takes his gun, he shoots in the room, so there's like a gun battle. Eventually, the guys run out of the room and go out, and there's a raging gun battle on the campus. And, some people are killed in the crossfire and collateral damage of it. Some of them may have been gang members. Some of them may have been civilians. In any case, this whole situation, this is the backstory of what happened there. But this became the beginning of his journey with the cops because they were going to sacrifice him as responsible. Now, the whole school had been surrounded by UN peacekeeping troops who stood on the outside and didn't even intervene in the whole time. So he was a scapegoat, and he realized he was a scapegoat. They asked him to come in, and he said, I see what's happening. I'm not falling for that one. I'm not going to come in, and now you arrest me and throw me in jail, and I was the guy who killed these people. No. And so he just held his ground. This was in November 2017, November 13th. Exactly a year later, on November 13th, 2008, there is what is called the La Saline Massacre, so-called. Now, Jimmy Cherizier in that year has begun to become very disenchanted with the cops, which used to be his dream. He derived. Here's a guy who was born in the gutter. His mom was an informal merchant on the sidewalk selling meat. That's how he got his name, Jimmy Barbecue, because of his mom's cooking. And he now began to see, as he explains in another vision, that this force was completely hypocritical and was just at the service of the oligarchy. So he's thinking and thinking and thinking about this. And he now arrives at a point where he's about to be fired from the cops because he's refusing to be their chump. So this massacre, this event happens in La Saline. And he'd gotten a phone call. He'd become, in his neighborhood, sort of the protector, because there had been gangs in his lower Delma neighborhood. This is Delma 2, 4, and 6. They name it for the roads that go off the Delma road that goes up the hill. These are like the vertebrae off the spine. And they'd had a gang there called the 117 gang, which had been basically extorting people, a few holdups, maybe a kidnapping or two. And one day he's explained to this all in our 2 days of talks. He and his guys went, 3 of his other UDMO cops went to the base of these guys. They like walked right into it, with their guns, and they're there. And they say, "Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?" "Yes, good. Listen, you guys have 3 options. You either can stop what you're doing, you can leave the area, or we'll kill you. Your choice, And they left. They went to La Saline. So he'd kind of cleaned up the neighborhood. He'd established, some kind of safe zone there, and scrubbed it up. They were cleaning and all that good stuff. And now he gets a call on November 1st, 2018, from a guy called T. Junior, who was a former gang guy in La Saline. And he says, "Listen," he says, "Yeah, this is T. Junior." And Jimmy goes, "To who's T. Junior?" And he goes, "T. Junior, I used to be a guy down in La Saline. You may have heard of me." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I've heard your name. Yeah, how you doing? What do you want?" And he goes, "Well, I just want to tell you that I'm going to take back La Saline," because he'd been friends with the gang leader there, a guy called, I'm calling them gang, armed groups. This leader there who was called Bout Jean Jean. I'm going back. I'm going to take it back from him. And I just want you to know, because those 117 guys you ran out, they're all down there, and they're probably going to come back, because it's going to be pretty hairy down there. And Jimmy said, "Okay." So there are 3. I haven't gone into this detail with anybody, Garland, so you got an exclusive here. There are 3 what they call in Haiti corridor. They're like alleys, basically cement on either side, and they lead from La Saline up into Lower Delma. So what Cherizier did was he stationed his people, to guard the exits of those alleys, to make sure none of these 117 guys came up running up into their neighborhood after. Because, we started to hear after November 1st, the shooting and all the so forth down there. And this went through till November 13th, when there was the big battle. And apparently there were 6 or 7 people. This is according to the Justice of the Peace report. They said there were 6 or 7 people killed. Well, in any case, this was the beginning of these human rights reports, which started to say this was a massacre which happened in La Saline. And in particular, one by a group called FJKL, which is the Open Eyes Foundation. Now, at the same time, on November 18th, is what they call Vertier, the day of Haitian Independence Day, like our July 4th. And a school friend of Jimmy's comes to him and says, "Jimmy, we're going to get rid of Jovenel Moïse on this November 18th. We're going to have a big uprising, and, we want your support, and, we're going to march up through Delma and stuff. So, we just want to make sure everything's cool with you." And Jimmy says, "Listen, you guys can do what you want. I'm not in it. I'm not, getting involved in all of that." But
was he still in the police force at that time, or was he out?
He's still in the cops technically,
Okay.
even though he's not replying to the leadership's thing. And he said, and I think he's laid off. He's been furloughed in some way. But he says, you can come up, go through, but one thing, don't, déchouquer, burn, loot any of the businesses here. We're guarding those. And, we want them because our people work there and we don't want them, torn up in this. So this fellow, his name is Ronnie Timothée, says, okay, that's cool. We got an understanding. And he said, oh, one other thing, Pierre Esperance has a favor to ask you. And he goes, yeah, what's that? And he goes, well, there's this thing that happened in La Saline, and he's got to write a report, and FJKL already put out theirs. He's going to write one. And, if you will deal with Marie-Hélène Gilles, who was the head of FJKL, who had been the former right-hand lieutenant of Pierre Esperance, if you would deal with her, that would be in your interest because, Pierre in his report would give you a clean bill of health. And he goes, what are you asking? You're asking me to kill Marie-Hélène Gilles? And Ronnie Timothée says, I see you get the message, and they split. And of course, Cherizier was not going to do that. He was disgusted, outraged, that such a thing was even proposed to him. And he told the guy, forget about that. In any case, the report came out a few days later, after November 18th. The people had gone up through Lower Delma. All the Delma 6 guys of Cherizier were standing out in front of the businesses there, making sure they didn't do anything bad. But Pierre Esperance's report came out, and this report essentially said that Cherizier not only participated in the massacre, that 71 people had been killed and 400 women raped, and he had planned it a few days before with 2 other guys. Anyway, lies about that.
It was Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction.
Exactly,
It was Putin's bringing people, strangling them with his bare hands.
Right.
It was the whole, whenever there's whichever person they come up with, it was Xinjiang.
Yeah,
the Chinese are slave labor.
Slaughtering yes.
It was the same game over and over.
Right. Same game over and over. So now this report came out, and this became the go-to report, repeated by all the other reports. They'd always refer to the RNDDH report, which is an NED, George Soros funded disinformation operation. So anyway, this is the beginning. And in fact, it was on the basis of that report, not even on his refusal to cooperate with the authorities on the Grand Ravine affair, that Cherizier eventually gets the boot. And they say, okay, Jimmy Cherizier is fired. So now he's thinking, he's in 2019, and he's thinking more and more about this situation, where the country's going. He sees the crisis. And he says, the problem we're having here in Lower Delma is shared by other neighborhoods. And we have to organize ourselves. We have to get it together, because we've, I skip a whole part where he's.
But we only got so much time, so we gotta.
Okay, yes, right. So I can't go into too much. So I'll speed it up a little bit here. So anyway, long and short, he tries a number of the opposition people. He tries some of the bourgeois who are affiliated with the opposition, and he asks them. And one of them asks him, for instance, to burn down the Toyota dealership in his neighborhood, and he sees who they are. So he basically breaks with the opposition. He's broken with the Jovenel government, and he says, we have to organize these people. And that's where he comes with the idea of making this federation of groups who are against kidnapping, against extortion, against rape, against any crimes against the people in their neighborhoods, one. And then two, they're going to work to change the system, to overthrow the government.
So let me make sure I get this straight. If we sum all of this up, he was a police officer Um, and he found out that the cops were basically crooked, operating at the hands of the ruling elite in the U.S. empire. I'm trying to sum it all up.
Yep.
He ended up out the door. Of course, there was no place. They tried to get him to be involved in murders and all kinds of criminal activity that he refused.
Yep.
And at some point, he came to the conclusion that this is a crooked system. We've
Yep.
got to try to organize these groups together and push back against the crimes against the people, push back against the kidnappings, the rapes, the murders. So here's a guy, and how normal is this for the U.S. empire? The guy who says, let's bring the people together, let's stop the murder, the rapes, the kidnappings, let's get these different groups together and work on behalf of the people. And the U.S. empire says he's the bad guy. Well, from the point of U.S. imperialism, they're right.
Mm-hmm.
They're right. You know what I mean? He is the bad guy if you're trying to just steal all of Haiti's resources and keep Haiti under your thumb. So this is the guy now that we're told he's the evil bad guy, et cetera, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And they started it on it early before we even got up to speed. This is he announces the G9. I think it's in March or April, maybe of 2020. By August, AP has a crew down
The G9
there.
is his group, right?
His group, yeah. G9.
And we're told that the G9 is some horrific, violent criminal group that goes around murdering and raping.
Cannibals.
Cannibals! Yes. How racist is that? How racist is that to point to the black poor people of Haiti and say they're cannibals?
Exactly, and in fact, this film I was mentioning earlier that I did in 1983, we have a segment by the former U.S. Marine Police Chief of the Haitian force they had, of the Marine force they had stationed in Haiti from 1915 to 1924, and the name of his book, Cannibal Cousins. So, it tells you how history repeats itself.
It's like you know what this is? This is in Libya, the leaders of the government are giving the soldiers Viagra so they can rape the women, and they revised that.
Yeah,
they revised that in Ukraine.
It was Cialis, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. That the Russian soldiers are being given lots of Viagra or whatever, so they can, that's an old story, I guess. They just, what the heck, if it works once, use it.
Retread it.
Yeah, and so now the guy in Haiti who's trying to stop the imperialists, who's trying to bring the people together, who's trying to stop crime, it's all over the newspaper, everywhere. Oh, he is the bad guy. But what we see now, if you could, something I'd like you to discuss a bit. The Jovenel Moise was, he was the president of a puppet president of the U.S. empire, obviously, but apparently at some point he got to the point where he wasn't as good a puppet as they wanted. There is strong evidence that the United States was involved, that the U.S. empire was involved in the murder, because we're going to have more time. I'd like to do another show with you here, but soon, but that the U.S. was involved in the assassination of Jovenel Moise, who is the, who was then the president of Haiti, and that the guy who they put in after him was, and my understanding is his name was Joseph.
There was Claude Joseph, who was his interim prime minister, but
the guy right now.
No, the guy right now
Ariel,
the guy who just resigned is Ariel Henry.
My understanding is he was on the phone with the assassins on the night that they assassinated. So at any rate, give us some strong evidence that you think points to U.S. involvement in the assassination of Jovenel Moise, the then prime minister, or then president of Haiti.
Well, we don't have any smoking gun yet, but one thing is for sure: Haiti has the fourth largest U.S. embassy in the world. That tells you one. If you look at this thing, it's the size of a city block, and it looks like a porcupine. It's so bristling with antennas and surveillance and whatever device. It is inconceivable to me that 30 Colombians and Haitian Americans who are in Haiti for 3 months planning this hit on Jovenel Moise, talking on their cell phones to their families back in Colombia or Miami. The money is coming in through Dominican Republic on the about $21 million were laundered through Dominican banks. This whole thing was hatched, a lot of it in Miami with a guy called Intriago, who was working with the U.S. government in all kinds of shady operations with his basically mini mercenary force. It's inconceivable to me that the same U.S. government tracks every electron that moves in this hemisphere by listening to our phone calls and everything, did not have, at the very least, a notion that these guys were up to this, if not totally involved in it. And the real sort of buckle that buckles it, as they say in Creole, is the fact that there was this one fellow called Joseph Felix Badiou. He was, when the Colombians broke into Jovenel's bedroom, they didn't know exactly
The assassins.
what he looked like.
So when he says the Colombians, he means the assassins who killed the who assassinated the president.
They called this guy Joseph Felix Badiou on the phone. He said, "Here's the guy. He's skinny, he's black, and he's about 5'10". And Badiou said, "That's the guy. Kill him." And boom, they shot him 12 times. Shot out his eyes, anyway, it was a mess. And the Badiou fellow was talking to Ariel Henry at 4 a.m, 3 hours after this assassination, for 7 minutes, 2 phone calls, 7 minutes. Ariel Henry just says, "I don't remember that. I was getting a lot of phone calls that night."
So let me get this straight. The guy who pretty much the U.S. inserted Ariel Henry as the prime minister after president after the president of Haiti gets assassinated. Yep. 3 hours after the president of Haiti is assassinated, Ariel Henry is on the phone twice in the middle of the night talking to the assassin team. Basically, the leader of the
assassin, the guy who told the assassins what to do.
Exactly, the leader, right?
Yep.
Ariel Henry, 3 hours, 4 o'clock in the morning. The assassin leader says, "Kill the president of Haiti." They kill the president of Haiti, and then he calls Ariel Henry and talks to him on the phone, or what they talk on the phone.
Yep.
And then the U.S. says, "Ariel Henry, you're the new president of Haiti."
That's right.
Now, my understanding also is several of the assassins were trained by the Drug Administration of the DEA. Basically, they were trained by the USD. You had assassins who were trained in Colombia by the DEA, go to Haiti, and rub out the president.
Exactly. So that's essentially what we've observed. And so we don't have a proof. We don't have a transcript or recording of the conversation between Ariel Henry and Joseph Badiou. We simply know that Badiou knew Ariel Henry and Ariel Henry knew him. There was a lot of reports, none of which we don't have any video or, again, forensic evidence that Badiou was in fact being harbored for many of the 3 years he was on the run. It wasn't until earlier this year that he was finally captured and is in custody, or was in custody. There was a prison break which was supposed to maybe have him escape, but he didn't. So in any case, the other element of it is, Garland, that we have the U.S. government taking control of this prosecution. So it reminds me very much of the Warren Commission, where the head of the CIA, at the time, Alan Dulles, he wasn't the head. He had been the head up until when Kennedy fired him, and then he ended up being the head of the Warren Commission. And we know today that the CIA was basically the one behind the Kennedy assassination.
Well, let me add this so people understand it very clearly. After the assassination of the president of Haiti,
Mhm.
right? Haiti.
Yep.
The U.S. then said, we'll handle the prosecution. Imagine that.
Right.
Imagine if there was an assassination of the president of Ghana, of France, of Kazakhstan, and the U.S. said, oh, no. We're going to handle the prosecution. And my understanding is the U.S. then said, oh, yeah, some of these assassins, we'll go in and grab them and bring them back to the U.S. And so the U.S. went and grabbed some of the assassins immediately afterwards and brought them back to the U.S. so they could handle the situation.
Yeah. And not only that, but one of the assassins is the guy called Jorge Palacios, a Colombian. And his lawyer asked for discovery to get some of the proof of the charges that they had against Palacios. And the US government responded that for national security reasons, they couldn't provide that. So
wait a minute. Yep. So one of the assassins' lawyers said to the U.S. government, we need information on, whatever they usually ask for discovery, anything, any U.S. people that might have talked to him, anything like that. Yep. We need to know what connections you guys got with this killer. And the U.S. government says, we can't, national security, we can't provide you that.
Can't provide you that. So, it's basically, the circumstantial evidence is basically drawing the chalk body line around U.S. involvement. And, but that's where we are. We've been stonewalled, and they've gotten very good, I think, at doing, I look at Covert Action magazine today, and I see these, top story being about one of the journalists who was onto the Kennedy assassination plot and died, was found dead in her bed. So a lot of these.
The other day, Boeing, the guy who was the whistleblower for Boeing, who was suing. Did you hear about that guy? He's a whistleblower against Boeing. He goes to sue Boeing. He goes to South Carolina to testify to be deposed for his lawsuit against Boeing, and suddenly decides he's spent enough time on this mortal plane. Why should I testify in a lawsuit that I'm just about sure to win and I'll probably get millions when I could just shoot myself in a truck?
And that's what he did. I missed this. Oh my God.
Yeah, they found him in a parking lot in a truck. And he had been talking to family members. Oh, yeah, can't wait to see you next week. Oh, good. Hey, we got plans. Oh, we'll go hang out at the beach.
And
I think I'll shoot myself instead. And we're supposed to believe that.
Yeah, and this woman, Kilgannon was her name. She was a big celebrity journalist. They found her sitting up in her bed with an overdose of alcohol and barbiturates. She didn't drink. She was Catholic. She didn't believe in suicide. All these things. I mean, it's a devastating article, Covert Action. Check it out. But they perfected this thing of making the fake suicide. Of course, we know the guy who revealed the Iran-Contra. His name's eluding me right now. The
guy, David Kelly in the UK.
Gary Webb.
Then you got David Kelly in the UK, the guy with the weapons of mass destruction, who slit his wrists and died, but there was no blood at the scene.
Right.
Now, I thought when you slit your wrist, you bleed to death. Apparently, just slitting his wrist is what he died from. And apparently, he didn't have any blood because otherwise it would have been at the scene. Interesting there.
Imagine Gary Webb. It took him. He had to shoot himself twice in the head.
Once he figured out the CIA, he revealed what the CIA was. He shot himself. And the guy in David Kelly, he committed suicide by slicing his wrist. Of course, he didn't bleed any for some reason. The UK government then did an inquiry and an investigation. They made a finding, and they sealed it for like 70 years. They're like, we found out what happened with David Kelly, and you can find out after you're dead, 75 years. So that seems to be the game. And certainly, I think with the Jovenel Moise assassination, anybody who has information, I'm sure a whole lot of people disappeared and died as a result of that.
Yeah, well, we I have maybe just seen the beginning of it. And in any case, that's a lot of the bad news. But the good news is that, as you and I know, Garland, this empire is falling rapidly. And this is a good moment for this uprising in Haiti and for the Haitian people. I think that Jimmy Cherizier, who only weeks before Jovenel fell said, oh, Jovenel's got to go. He had a big rally. It's in Another Vision. But as soon as they killed Jovenel, he was outraged that these people could come in and do this. And he said, we got to get to the bottom of this. And he became a leader of the Justice for Jovenel coalition, despite having said we have to kick out Jovenel. And then all the pundits say, oh, you see, he is a Jovenel agent because he's saying Jovenel needs justice. So this is the kind of weird warp we get in. And unfortunately, a lot of our friends on the left have been caught up in it, are totally confused.
Well, let me say this. I have friends who asked me recently, what's going on in Haiti? I'm watching TV. They said they're eating people. And they said, this guy, Jimmy Barbecue is horrible and he barbecues people. And so they give people this over the top, crazy propaganda. It's Vladimir Putin has Parkinson's disease, stomach cancer, dementia. You know what I mean? It's just, if someone is the bad guy, then they just go with over the top absurd propaganda. And now barbecue. The other thing I say is this. What I think it shows that the U.S. empire is to say he's eating people. Yeah, that's a terribly that's Joe Biden, the racist bastard that Joe Biden is, because it's okay. Here's an island. These people are black and they're poor, and you're going to turn them into some kind of mindless cannibals. And now that gives the U.S. the right to go in and just kill lots of. Well, they're just mindless cannibals. They've got to be eliminated, and they can go in and kill lots of people, and they can justify doing anything to these people because, by God, they're not even human. What was the guy, Raoul Peck's, exterminate the savages, as that Raoul Peck's.
The brutes.
Exterminate the brutes, right.
Yeah. And, that's, they flagged him early. They flagged Cherizier early. And, you're a former cop, right? And you were involved in investigations. So you guys are dangerous. Because the workings, how it goes, and you have a certain standing, having been inside the belly of the beast. So,
a quick example, I tell people, I worked with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force for a while. Mm-hmm. And every time somebody says, boy, the FBI really screwed that one up, I say, I worked with those guys. No, they didn't. They're smart guys. They're all educated. The guys I worked with had master's degrees and doctorates and all. These guys are very well educated, very well trained, and very knowledgeable. Don't you ever believe that the FBI screwed something up because they were incompetent. Yeah. If it appears that they were incompetent, they did that crap on purpose. Their most valuable tool is the appearance of incompetence, because they're really good, well-trained, well-equipped. They have the best. I worked with these guys. I can tell you, they got the best equipment and computer stuff and everything in the world. So anytime you think they were stupid, they didn't know, they were confused. You're the one that's confused. They know exactly damn what the hell they're doing. It's that they're dirty. That's what it is. They're criminal. It is. Let's say this: the FBI, having worked with them, I made this statement after I worked with the FBI Joint Terrorist Task Force for a year. I said, you know what? That's an intelligence operation masquerading as a law enforcement agency. That's not a law enforcement agency. It's an intelligence operation for the U.S. government.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking to a guy last night because I was wondering, why is the FBI guarding Ariel Henry? As they
guarding the president of another country, of Haiti.
The prime minister. I said, they're not the Secret Service. They're not the Secret Service Diplomatic Security Corps. Well, I found out what they did. They basically interrogated Ariel Henry for 3 days. And the first day, they were asking about the Jovenel questions. saying, "Come on, dude, tell us what happened. What your involvement." But that wasn't their big goal.
Right. Because they already knew
It
the answer
wasn't.
to
They
those.
already knew the
They
answer.
already knew that because
The
they were involved.
remaining 2 days, they were grilling him because Haiti, in the last days just before Jovenel, paid Venezuela $500 million. Why? And they wanted to know why, because it seems they wanted to go after him for some money laundering charge or scheme that was going on that had him repay the Petrogaripe loan that Venezuela had made of $500 million to Maduro. So they were looking for dirt to go after Maduro. So this is how, political and scandalous, you killed the president, no big deal. We want to know about the money laundering so we can go chase and pester Maduro.
Wow. Well, one of our people in the chat got it right, and that is the whole they're eating people and all this stuff. That's Haiti's 40 beheaded babies. You know what I mean? That's October 7th. They beheaded babies and raped women, and that's the game that they play.
Dude, you can't imagine this. Last night, Dan Cohen, I was invited by a guy called Narwhal something. It's like the largest Twitter space. Okay. And this is like all whack job, crazy right-wing types on it. I mean, and Dan Cohen was in there, like, the Three Musketeers taking them all on. And they were coming with all this stuff. These guys are a cannibal monster. Because this guy, some right-wing nut job called Dom something, published this.
I'm always suspicious. If they're on Twitter and they're pushing the same things, if you can open the Washington Post and the New York Times, these CIA rags, and read stuff, and then you go online and these guys are pushing the same things that are in the Washington Post and the CIA rag, New York Times, they're probably paid by the same people.
Yeah, right. Anyway, this Dom guy, put out this thing, and they're trying to portray, barbecue as the cannibal. And they said, here's a picture of him. A guy, it was a 3-year-old video first. The guy didn't look anything like barbecue, of course, and it wasn't even happening in that part of the country. It was some place up in the north in what's called the Artibonite Valley. So, but through force of repetition, like the old Goebbels saying, lie, 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 something always remains. Everybody now knows that the leader of the Haitian uprising is a cannibal, so it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Susan Rice. I said Susan Rice. Oh yes, they're giving their troops in Libya Viagra so they can rape this. So over and over. It's the same game over and over. And I always get kind of pissed with Americans because I say, my God, these people steal your wallet and sell it back to you. They pick your pocket and sell you your own wallet over and over again. And you guys just keep buying it. When are you going to stop buying it? At any rate, thanks a lot. I want to get you back on soon because we got some more stuff to talk about Haiti. So let's do another show sometime next week and we'll talk Haiti again. For those who don't know, I do a show, WPFW 89.3 FM in Washington, D.C. every Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Kim is going to be on there this evening at 6 p.m. and we're going to talk Haiti and we're going to go over some of this stuff and we're going to do some more stuff. So thanks a lot, everybody. Don't forget, Haiti Liberté, HAITLIBERTE, Haiti Liberté.com is the website. It is in French. It's in Creole. So usually a little thing pops up that says translate to English. You can click on that. If it doesn't, click on the story. And when you go to the story, that'll pop up and you can translate that. As I said, Google's always up to no good. It's just a state, an apparatus for the state. Did you have any last words before we go?
Well, there is an English section on that thing. You'll see it's called This Week in Haiti. And it is HAITI LIBERT. They're basically
I left out the I.
Yeah.
Haiti and then the word liberté with an E afterwards.
Liberté with an E on the end instead of a Y. So, that English section, we try generally to make a kind of ramassé, as they say, a summary of the news that's in the rest of the paper for English speakers.
Once again, it's amazing. You know, when you hear the US, whether it's Venezuela, Cuba, it's Russia, it's China, it's, you know, whatever country, when you hear the story from this giant intelligence slash media machine, even if it's Trump, if it's in Russia, if it's always there's a bad guy, the bad guy's doing bad things, and they're connected to other bad guys. You know what I mean? It's just, it becomes laughable. But at any rate, we're going to work to educate people more about Haiti. Well, I'm going to get Kim on fairly regularly. Now that Haiti's in the news, I'm going to have other people on too. We're going to educate you as best we can about what's really going on in Haiti. Thanks a lot, Kim, Ives, and we'll look forward to talking to you tonight. Everyone, make sure you share this on all your social media platforms. You see everything scrolling across the bottom. You also join me over on Rockfin. It costs nothing. Follow me on Telegram. Also follow me on Rumble. In case they decide to throw me off YouTube one day, then you can still find me on Rumble or rockfin.com. And if anything you can do to contribute to the channel is certainly helpful. Even if you can't, just hit the like button and share this on all your social media platforms. Thanks a lot.